Children, obey your parents in the Lord. You see, if we're not children, then this is not for us. But this is for every one of us, regardless of what age we are. Why we ought to obey our parents in the Lord? For this is right. Do it because it is right. Honor thy father and thy mother. Honor is the word. Which is the first commandment with promise. Many times we pray, we remind God of what you promised us, dear God, and we are claiming our promises. So what is this promise? He said, that it be well with thee. Do what? Honor my father and my mother, and if I do that, it will be well with me. And God, you say, that is a promise? Hello? I'll show you something else. He said, not only that, and that thou mayest live long on the earth. I wonder why we got so many young people just dying at such an old age. I wonder why. And you fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Boy. Brother Daniel would like to be one of the 25 and not a father this morning preaching. Because there are some things that all of us as fathers may find ourselves guilty of. I'm not standing here today proclaiming that I am the perfect father. I'm only standing here today because he has selected me to be the one to speak to us. You will get it one time, but I've been getting it all week and the week before. So let me share a few things with you, what he shared with me. First of all, he gave me a title, and this is the title he gave me. Daddy, what are you doing? I was in the shower this morning, and something said, well, that's a message in itself. For me to stop and just think on, Daddy, what are you doing? As I sat to prepare this message, many thoughts flooded my mind. One of the thoughts that came to my mind was that of building a house. And the question came to me saying, which one of us would have money to build a house and look for a good mechanic and give him the money and say, go build this house for me? I think Brother Daniel is a good mechanic. I trust him in my car. But he ain't building no house for me. Had an earthquake the other day. You would have tell whether it was built good or not. Or which one of us thinking of building a house will take a plan and the money and look for the person that you love and say, build me this house? Because you love that person. I'm sure you will not give your money, especially if you borrow it from the bank. They wouldn't even give it to you if you would give it to someone like that. I believe that none of us will do that. What we will do is to find someone with experience of building homes and trust that person or those persons to build your house. Am I correct? Someone with experience. Someone with experience. Before one gets a driver's license, and boy, when you're 16, you can't wait to become 18. I know about you. I think it was either the day after or the day of my birthday I went for my license. Couldn't wait. But before we get a driver's license, we must have some experience in driving. Am I not right? And then we go down to the traffic officer. He takes us on the road, especially if he doesn't know you, and put you in all those tight spots and trying his best for you to run up on the edge and to run on the line and to fail you. But because of your experience, you pass. When I went for my driver's license, Pastor Richardson's brother, he was the instructor who took me on the road. Those days, the police would take you on the road and give you a license. And when he came back to the station, he said, "Park up." And he walked out of the car. And when he walked out of the car, I followed him. He said, "Where you going?" I said, "How you mean where you going?" He said, "So you think you passed?" I said, "I didn't think so. I know so." He said, "You're smart. Because if you were not sure, I would not have given you your license." Why I was so sure? From the time I was 13 years, I was out walking, driving truck, and the police and them behind me from then trying to catch me. I remember one day, the black Volkswagen came up and I was just dumping some cement up on the farm with the blocks, and one of the boys say, "Clean up coming." I leap out of that truck and leap over the wire. I went in the back of the hardware and I hid. And he went in to hide away and he said, "This gotta stop. This gotta stop." I stayed in the back hiding. He wouldn't find me. What am I trying to say? That gave me a little experience. So when I went for my license, I knew how to do it because I had some experience. But isn't it true that many of us, if not all of us, when God blesses us with children and give us the responsibility to bring them up or to raise them, that we find ourselves responsible to raise children, but no experience? God, tell me the truth. Isn't it true? Brother Daniel Ganlon. But God gave us this response. He gave us these gifts from Him and gave them to us with the responsibility to raise them without experience. No doubt that's why we make so much mistakes. If you listen to us, you would think, boy, they know everything about raising children. One may say, well, Pastor, there are books out there that you can read on parenting. Yes, that's true. There are books out there you can read on piloting too, but I ain't got no plan with you. Some years ago, a man I highly respect said something to me. And what he said to me then stood with me up to this day. He said, if you were here on Wednesday night, you would know what he said because I told you. He said, I don't know why we don't have grandchildren before children. Okay, Granddad thinks so too. I asked him why he would say that. He said the grandchildren are so much more fun to be with. Guilty. Guilty. While our kids were so much more difficult in reason. I thought of that and I began to wonder why that seems to be true. When the grandkids do and say what they want, that the children could not do and say. I looked at a picture of a grandchild up on a dining room table. And the grandmother is na 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 na. And if that child had pulled that grandmother's tablecloth off the table, dead rat. At least I get an amen. If the child did not sit properly, the child, you would speak to him, sit down, and immediately the child would straighten up. He would adjust. Tell it to your grandchild. If the child didn't eat the meal, my grandmother would say, if you don't want it, you can lay down beside it. These days, they don't want a meal. What do you want? And you still want them to come first? In raising children, if your child was crying, and it's time for the child to be quiet, you'll walk over to the child and say, be quiet. Shut up. And the child would hush. You walk over to a grandchild now and say, shut up. Yeah! Yeah! If your children got homework and they come home, they better make sure they do the homework before the sun sets. Because the little lamp, you got to clean it. You put your hand up in it and clean it. And you got to get it done for your parents to inspect it before night shuts in. You ask your grandchildren, you got homework? And they say they should have come first. If the child didn't like the uniform that he or she had to wear, it makes no sense for you to say anything about it because it is the only uniform you got. You gotta go to school with it. Today, you got one for Monday, one for Tuesday, one for Wednesday, one for Thursday. And just in case you mess up one of them, there's another one. In days gone by, the children would walk the road and they would meet someone that is older than them and would not say good morning? You better hope that you don't see that person talking to your mother or to your grandmother, because if you do, you know for sure you will never do that again. Tell the children of today, you spoke to that person? Mm-hmm. Lots of those things that were found in our children are not found in the grandchildren of today. But we say we wish we had them before. Parents, be careful leaving your children with their grandparents. Because the truth of the matter is, let me be honest with you, the truth of the matter is, when they get overbearing, come for your child. My question is, what has changed? You may not agree with me, but yet they seem to be so sweet and we love them so much. What I believe is when we were raising our children, we had little or no experience. Let's be honest. We gained experience as we were raising our children. And now that we got experience, we don't have no more children. And we are not getting any more children. So the only thing that we can do is to spoil our grandchildren. Something else I've noticed, when there's a situation to handle at church, many times people would walk up to you and tell you, but you didn't do what we suggested or what we told you to do. And sometimes they wonder why. And I would say, well, the truth of the matter is, shepherds think different to sheep. And until one becomes a shepherd, you may never understand how a shepherd thinks. Many, if not all of us as parents, are given the responsibility to parent without experience. But may I say to you that that's the reason why it is wise to seek godly counsel. It is wise when you're raising children to seek wisdom from the Word. I know sometimes the counsel that we like to have would be from people who think like we think and agree with us. But I would say that it is wise for you to find a godly parent, a godly brother, or a godly sister, and get some counsel from them. Wow. So let me share a point or two with you and leave a point or two for tonight. Let's look at the text and draw a few points from it. Matter of fact, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make it fast. I'll skip verse 1, I'm going to skip verse 2, I'm going to skip verse 3, we're going to go to verse 4. See how quick I reach down to verse 4? And that's the last. Daddy, what are you doing? Here's what I'm going to tell you that God said not to do. Daddy, don't provoke and discourage your children. Don't provoke them. Don't discourage them. I believe that our children meet with enough provocation and discouragement outside of our homes. A father is admonished by God not to provoke the children. Don't provoke them to wrath. Provoking our children would always discourage them. In Colossians chapter 3 and verse number 21, the Bible says, Father, provoke not your children to anger. Why? Lest they be discouraged. So whenever we provoke our children to anger, they will get discouraged. And I say to you today, don't discourage your children when we ought to be encouraging them. You say, but Pastor, how do we do this? Let me be honest with you. It's very easy. It's very easy for us as fathers to discourage our children or to provoke our children. One may ask, but how is it done? I jot a few things down, and I had to stop because they were just flooding my mind. A few things down on what we sometimes do that we need to stop doing when it comes to discouraging our children. How is it done? How do we discourage our children? Let me be honest with you, Father. When we put our children down and lift up other people's children, we discourage our own. Sometimes we have a way of saying, did you see so-and-so? How comes you're not like so-and-so? Hey, stop it. Matter of fact, so-and-so has a different father. And maybe the reason why the child is like how he or she is what he may have seen in the father. So fathers, don't measure your children by other people's children. One of the things that I have noticed is that when you see other people's children, all you would see is the good in them. And good parents will only tell you the good in them. But when you begin to tear your children down, then you become very yappy. You tell everybody everything about your children. And when your children hear it, you discourage your children. May I tell you something? Your children, they are the best you got. And what we need to do is to stop and remember that God has given us a responsibility not to discourage them, but to encourage them along the way. Do they make mistakes? Plenty. Guess what? They may not be up to as many as we made. Can I get an amen? You say, how do we discourage our children, fathers? When a father does not fulfill his promise to his children, he discourages children. Hello? When we promise our children that we would be there and then they look around and they're not there, we discourage our children. I remember when my daughter Shanette was getting graduated in Maryland, my wife and I and Kendall, we got on the plane and we went up to Shan's graduation. We were living one place and she was living the next, and we were in the arena, and she was going up and she didn't see us, but we were out there shouting. Gosh, you should have heard Kendall. Go, Shan, go. But she didn't hear that. And at the end of it, she was so discouraged. So we wonder why, Shan. She said, Daddy, you all were not there for my graduation. And then we named to her everything that she said, Daddy, how you know? I said, Shan, didn't you hear us? Didn't you hear us? We were right there shouting for you. What am I trying to say? If we did not show up, She would have been discouraged. Why? Because we promised her that we would be there. And when we do not show up for our children, we discourage them. Daddy, what are you doing? One of the ways I believe that we discourage our children is that when we as fathers become too strict. Like I say, remember, we didn't have no experience, ain't true? When we become too strict with our children, when they can't go here, when they can't do this, when they can't do that, especially when the pressures of other people are done upon you and your children, watch, we discourage our children when we become too strict. Anybody in the house? Fathers, don't discourage your children. When a father neglects his role as head of the home, our children are there. They look and they see everything that's happening. Now you may say, but I am the head of the home here. But when we neglect our role in the home as head of the home, we discourage our children. Our children learn more by what they see than what they hear. How are you handling your role in the house? When a father has no spiritual convictions, absolutely. And his children look at him without spiritual convictions, and then he comes to church and you hear all these things from him in church, the first person that look at you and say you are a hypocrite is your children. Our spiritual convictions must start in the home. When a father has inconsistent standards, he stands for this here, depends on who there, he falls back over here. When he is not consistent in what he stands for and his children gets to see that he's not consistent, the children immediately look at their father and figure out, Daddy, what are you doing? You are a hypocrite. You got to be consistent. When a father becomes impatient, everything he could school for, everything he pick up something, want to try the child. Come here. All of a sudden you say, come here, the children gone. When we become impatient, we discourage the children. When a father disciplines his children out of anger, watch, he discourages his children. When you're angry, it is never a time for you to discipline your children. Not when you're angry. When he speaks to his children about loving and serving God, but he shows none of that where they could see, you would hear them to their friend, you study he? Don't study he. You discourage your children. You provoke your children. Stay with me. When a father does not teach his children how to please him as a father, but he expects everything that they would do, they would please him, but he never one day sat down and spoke to them about what it takes to please him. He discourages his children. When a father fails to recognize, stay with me, some good in his children, if you cannot see some good in his children, if you really believe what you say that you're good for nothing, then you are discouraging your children. You know, sometimes you may be driving a brand new car and you ran over something and it tore the muffler. Now that the muffler is torn, what happens, Brother Danny? Brother Daniel? Lots of noise, ain't true? But let me ask you a question. because she's blowing loud now, is the car any older? Isn't it still the same car? May I ask you a question? The pistons, are they working well? The crankshaft, is it turning well? The cam, is it on time? No. The fire and the gas, is it on time? All of that is doing good, right? But what happened? One thing happened. The muffler's torn, lots of noise, and now your attention is on the muffler on the car because it's making noise and it is no good. Stop. Think of all the other good things that's going on. It's only the muffler. Am I making sense to you? And don't tell me that we cannot stop and see something good in our children. When you want to talk to your children about something bad, please do me a favor. Please find some good to talk to them about first. Because you see, if they come home and they expect that home should be home, and when they come home, home is just like the battlefield outside, then sometimes they're right not wanting to come home. It doesn't matter what you may see in a child that you don't like. I can guarantee you that child has more good qualities than bad qualities. That child has more good things in him or her than bad things. May I tell you, what if God would treat us based on how we behave? Hello? Isn't it true that God hates our sin, but he loves us as sinners? Isn't it true? So why is it that we cannot hate the behavior but love the child? Come on, somebody be with me this morning. And I think that our children are at home, and sometimes some people feel like because you love your child, because the muffler's broken, you should be making noise like the rest of them making noise. Because you love your child, then something is wrong with you. Listen, I can hate what my child does and love my child to my heart. When a father fails to recognize good in children, he discourages his children. When a father sacrifices his family for his freedom, he discourages his children. When a father needs to be home with his children, and he's out there with his freedom, having fun with all of the boys, and then mother. Someone asked this morning, what about the mother who's the father? And then mother has to play father on the inside. Fathers, what are we doing? Many of us, we work hard. We save some of what we work for and expect that we would leave it for our children. Well, may I tell you? All depends on how those children are, and they know how much it is. The day that you are buried, it's all done because they credited before you were buried. But leave something in your child. Try your best to leave something in you. I'm not telling you that you're going to take everything. Try your best to leave something in your child that from what you left in your child can take a portion and leave in his or her children. But if you don't leave nothing, and they're going to pass on what you have left, what will they pass on? When he sacrifices his family for freedom, when a father sacrifices his family for profession or for other gain, he discourages his children. When a father fails to show love for his wife, their mother, they're there looking at it, and he's telling everybody else, I love you in the Lord. Them children keep walking, going about their business. You love them in the Lord, and you can't love my mother in the house. Yeah, you love them in the Lord, but you can't love them in the house. We discourage our children when they do not see us loving their mother, our wives. Boy, some of you guys, when she was young, she couldn't keep your hands off her. But now look like your hands paralyzed. The fathers, what are we doing? The children, they are watching. And here's what you're doing. You are teaching your children, and they will not get everything that you do. They are teaching you are teaching your children, and they're going to take some of what you have passed on to them to pass on to their loved ones. So you could imagine, if your arm paralyzed by the time they come, theirs will be cut off. Sometimes I wish Mother's Day would come after Father's Day. When a father does not have his priorities set right according to God's standards, he discourages his children. May I say something to you? When a father thinks that he is always right, he is never wrong, could never find himself saying, I am sorry, forgive me. Hey, when your children see that in you, they know that what you call, it's like the young people today. When they say, that's cool, you know they mean that's hard. Boy, you got to do baptism. Let me give you one more point. Don't discourage your children. Number 2. Daddy, what are you doing? So I say, instead of discouraging your children, what should you do? Encourage your children. Encourage your children. Be the father to appreciate your children. Let your children know you appreciate them. How? The first thing you need to do for them to know that you appreciate them, take it upon yourself and tell them. Hey, son, I appreciate you. I am not perfect, and you know you are not perfect. But son, I appreciate you. And you know what I appreciate about you this morning? That you took it upon yourself to be here today. You could have jumped on the plane like you were booked to do and go back home. But you wanted to be here this Father's Day for your father, and you wanted to be here for your children. I appreciate you. And if no one else tells you that I appreciate you, hear it from me. I appreciate you. Of course, you know that there are things that I don't appreciate, but I appreciate you. One of the things, if we are going to encourage our children, we need to do, stop and tell our children, I thank you, son, for being you. We may have all these things in our mind how our children should be, but our parents had in their mind how we should be too. But they loved us anyhow. We need to stop. And sometimes They say you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. Sometimes we need to use the honey method if it's true that we catch more flies. Encourage your children. Fathers, what are we doing? So here's what you need to do. Daddy, when was the last time you said to your son, son, I love you? Daddy, when was the last time you said to your teenage daughter, honey, I love you? I remember when my kids were growing up. One day Anne went to school, and this fellow who thought that he had so much of it, he reached out to Anne and he said to Anne, I love you. She said, you late, Daddy told me this morning. So they are accustomed of hearing, I love you. So when somebody out there say, I love you, and they didn't hear it before, they don't have to tingle and fall over because they are accustomed of hearing from people who really care for them, I love you. Daddy, what are we doing? We need to stop and pay attention to the fact when they are trying. I didn't even know he would be here today. We need to stop and pay attention to the fact when they are trying and say, son, I can see you trying. Tell them how you feel when you see them trying. If you are a good swimmer, and you see somebody out there who fell overboard and they're trying to swim, and they're trying, what is the first thing that you will do as a good swimmer if you got any compassion in your heart? What would you do? You would throw yourself overboard and go to them and say, hold me. Let me help you because you are trying. Appreciate those who are trying. Sometimes, Daddy, we need to stop. Brother, how you felt this morning being the father of the year? Come tell me, brother, how you felt? You didn't expect that? Sometimes we stop ever so often and we appreciate people. I love this church. They never stopped me once from trying to do what's right. We appreciate people because we want people to feel good. How do we appreciate people? He got a check this morning, a blank check. Boy, that's why I'm watching them, boy. You hear that? You see that? And he from the French side. Brother White, pastor, here calling you pastor. Brother Mikey say, that's why I sitting with them. Because when they're going to have lunch or dinner with that check, you would have already seen me with them. But what am I trying to say? We give a gift or gifts this morning to show what? Every so often, Daddy, every so often, we need to stop. Stop being cheap. And go somewhere and buy something. And no, they are not the best children in the world. But here's what we do. We show them, don't you think no gift coming to you, mister? We show them we appreciate them by just going and buying them a gift. Something that they didn't expect. Our children. Daddy, what are we doing? We see all the bad that they have done. But do we really stop and see all the good in them? Do we stop and see that? Daddy, what are we doing? When the Bible says we are not to provoke our children to wrath, we must be encouraging our children. When was the last time that you bought a gift for your son, Daddy? When was the last time? When was the last time your son was in financial difficulties and you say, here, son, Daddy, what are we doing? Give them a gift every now and again in appreciation. Encourage them. Daddy, what are we doing? Instead of joining with other people and talking about them, hey, jump on a plane, go where they are, and spend some time with them. Spend some valuable time with them. Did you hear what I said? They're not the best, but they're the best that I got. I've said over and over, if God were to roll our lives there on screens, watch, you wouldn't have a preacher preaching, and the preacher wouldn't have nobody to preach to. Because all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And if we say we have not sinned, we deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us. So we all have made mistakes. Spend valuable time with your children. Hey, Dad, when was the last day that you took your son out on a special day just to be there, you and him, or your daughter, just you and your daughter? When was the last time you did that? Hello? Don't shut me off now. Hello? And if you're there telling yourself you ain't coming back tonight, I got you now, I'll give you all. Every now and again, you need some boys' time. It's a boy you got? It comes a time she got to stay home. You need some boys' time, you and your son. When the girl come along, somebody say by next year, I know. Every now and again, she will need some girls' time. Just to invest in those children to know when all hell breaks loose outside, I can come home. Because at home, I am at home. Spend some time with your children. On their special days, make it special. Let them know that you remember them. Daddy, what are we doing? When your children are successful, hey, stop everything you are doing and celebrate their success. Hello? Yeah, if they've been in school for 4 years and now they are graduating, if you borrow the money, be there. Celebrate their success. Daddy, what are we doing? Speak well of them to others. Some folks are not some folks don't use wisdom well. Two people be talking, this one got children, and you there spilling your guts about your child. Boy, that child of my own. And this next one, girl, you're right. And ain't telling you nothing about your child. But my child did, but he come on late last night. Watch. The person that you ought to be speaking to is your child, not taking the business out on the street and say, this is my friend who I confide in, who got a friend who he or she confides in, who has a friend who he, and then everybody, the time you know the police looking for your child for something, the poor child didn't even do. Because you started it. When you're speaking about your child to others, speak to build them up, not to tear them down. Your child, Daddy, you Christians, Daddy, let me ask you, when was the last time, can I touch you, sister? I ain't got COVID. Can I touch you? When was the last time you put your hands on your child's head and bless your child. Come on, Daddy. Come on, Daddy. Tell me, when was the last time that you put your hands on your child's head and you bless your child? I know you cuss them a lot. What about blessing your children? You check Jacob and those boys? How they bless their children? Isaac? Bless Jacob? Jacob? Wait. Wicked Jacob? Who went out and put a trick on his brother? And his mother had a part to do with it, but his father blessed him? Why, for some of us, that would have been the last blessing he received. Stop and bless your children. Because if you don't do it, who else will do it? Let me say this quickly and then let me wrap up, because you got to go and I got to go and I got to come back. Let me say this. Hey, Daddy, what are you doing? Don't show favoritism between your children. Anybody in the house? Parents are often tempted to show favoritism. Why? Because a child may have more in him or in her that the parent agree with than the other child. By the way, the child may be more like that parent than the other children. Some parents favor children who are closest to their personality. Because, boy, that child like me. You know, sometimes when a husband and wife happens to fall out, and the child has qualities of the father, it's not like you know where you're going. Father, husband and wife separate, but because the child has qualities and looks like the father, every time I see him, he reminds me of his father. So poor old fella, he must suffer now because she is mindful of the father. It's like the devil, I can't get on God, so I want to get at those who are in his image. So the other children now becomes the favorite. I said to you that favoritism can be very destructive to a family. I can't build on this, so I'm going to have to stop. Here's what you must look out for. When you ever hear a child say, I am the black sheep in the family, that's a bell just gone off. Tilling, 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 tilling. Not we are the black sheep. I am the black sheep in the family. Had you ever heard that? Had you ever heard it? And some of us do feel that way sometimes. Why? Because how the other sheep are treated. We feel like we are the black sheep, not that black. Not that black, not that black. We are the black. When he was born, as he was born, I said to his mother, you got a black boy, not that black. When the others feel like they are close to the hearts of mom and dad, the other person feels like there's no room for them. And sometimes, watch this. Fathers, be careful, huh? Fathers, be careful, huh? Fathers, be careful, huh? You ain't got no son, so I ain't coming by you. You got son? You ain't got no son. You got son? You ain't got no son neither, so they ain't coming by you. Who? Nelson got a son. Oh, Trent has a son. If you don't continue telling your son that he love you, and another man begin to tell your son, God forbid, and another man began to tell your son, I love you, and he's not accustomed of hearing I love you from a mature man, his father, that can cause. Are you with me? So when he come home walking a little funny, you would need to stop and wonder why my son drifting over there? Your son is drifting over there because he's now hearing another man say, I love you. In my closing days of ministry, here's what I want. Here's what I'm asking myself. What am I turning over? What have I preserved over the years that I've been here in St. Martin? What am I turning over to the next generation? We can work, save lots of money, buy lots of land. When we die, earmark it. It belongs to this person, to that person. But let me tell you something. If you did not work hard on making sure your child is the child that it should be, if anybody will come in the grave and tell you what happened, you would turn in your grave. Because no money, no land, nothing that you can leave will really change the heart of that child. Watch. Invest. Invest. Brother, you got it. Right at the tip, you could start from all this. Invest in your children. Here's what you need to learn from all this. Do everything right and hope that your child will be like you. Many today would say, I don't want my children to be like me. Why? 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 You're pastoring a church, you say, I don't want the people to follow me. Why? Why? When the Apostle Paul say, follow me as I follow Christ. As I look at my life, I wish my children would be like me. Am I perfect? No, I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. I've acknowledged my mistakes to my children. I've asked God to forgive me of my mistakes. I've asked my children to forgive me of my mistakes. And I say, watch me now as I live my life to bring honor and glory to God. Our children are the best we got. I am not going to measure my children by yours. I pray for yours and I pray that God will bless them abundantly. But don't think that I ain't praying for mine also. They are all we got. And if they do not realize that they got us, then who will they have? I want all my children to stay in their relationships. You make up your mind that you want to be in there, stay there. But if one of my children will come rapping at my door at midnight, Daddy, you ain't open the door? That's our child, Mikey. That's our child. And our children need to know we hate what they do, but we love our children. And that's all I am saying. I am not saying that we are perfect. Hey, our children got their share in them, and some of it they got from us. But we need to show them, hey, this is always home. You can always come home. We need to be like that father who was looking. I don't know if he could see well, but he was looking. And when the son said, I'm going to arise and go to my father and say, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against earth. In his father's mind, he say, hush your mouth. You don't have to tell me nothing. Come on home. Kill the fattest calf. Hey, make a party. Bring everybody in. He was away, and now he is found. Thank God. Welcome your children. Your children? Daddy, what are you doing? That's the question. What are you doing? What are you doing in the lives of your children? What are you doing? They may not agree with you with all that you're doing. Make sure what you're doing is based on the Word of God. Make sure that they have a solid foundation to come back to. You understand what I'm saying? You don't have to go over there with them. You can stay here and always be ready to send a lifeline so that you could come home. Daddy, what are you doing? Heads bowed, eyes closed.